All right, I'm gonna start a little early. Welcome to the very first pre-market wake up with no more paper trading. My name's Frank. I will try to do a pre-market show from here on out every day. Nobody's watching right now. I'll be going live every day, but hopefully people will start watching and start joining our community. Our community is called No More Paper Trading, where we want to stop paper trading and move on to making real money. We don't sell anything. We don't sell memberships. No pump and dumps, nothing. My singular goal is to become a profitable trader. This is to make me a more professional trader. Hopefully. Maybe I'll become a joke. I don't know. Anyway, the link to our Discord community is in the description. Alright, as we start coming up in just 2-3 minutes, some pretty major news coming out. We have durable goods. Just 3 minutes. A lot of news this week. This isn't as important as what's coming up Thursday or Friday. Perhaps I'll talk about that a little bit later. But I'll just wait a couple minutes, see what happens with the news, and then I'll move on to what happened in the overnight. I'm not really sure what durable goods orders are. I mostly trade technical. I wouldn't mind getting into more fundamental trading, but as of now in my trading career, I mostly avoid news releases by 10 or 15 minutes. I close all trades, or if I'm in a really long-term trade, I'll just watch it and make sure, maybe widen my stops a little. Oh, I forgot to. Now let's do this. I have a live view of, well, that's gold. MES, as the news is going to be released in 30 seconds. Let's read an explanation of what durable goods is. It's released by the U.S. Census Bureau. Cost of orders received by manufacturers for durable goods, which means goods planned for the last 3 years or more. Motor vehicles, appliances. Durable products often involve large investments. They are sensitive to the U.S. economic situation. Well, apparently, MES does not really care. The ES does not really care that much. Anyway, the number's coming out. I don't have it set up where I can show you on my screen. Maybe I'll have to do that for next time. But coming out, I don't know. I don't know how to read these numbers. I know a bit more about all the numbers that are important for rate cuts, as that seems to be the most important narrative for equities trading. That's mostly what I trade, futures, equity futures. I'll go through all the ones I trade. I also trade gold and oil. Not as much. I usually trade gold and oil in the longer term, and equity futures I scalp. end swing. Not as much swing as scalp. Yeah, let's move on. Let's take a look at the overnight and the futures that I trade. So if you don't know, equity futures are representative of indices. So the MES is same thing as SPY. Not the same thing, but they correlate. They're correlated heavily to SPY and the S&P. So for the MES overnight, looks like we had a large drop we have yet to recover from. But there has been constant rejection of price going lower. Every time price does shoot down, it seems to recover here. There's constant testing. Even now, it seems like we are about to test yesterday's low, Monday's low. I usually label them on my chart as PDL, previous day low. Right above that was Monday's close, previous day close. For the close, I don't use the futures closing time of 5 o'clock. I use the closing time as the settlement, whatever they CME has for settlement. There's an option in TradingView, which is the charts you're looking at, that allows you to choose the settlement for close. Sometimes it lags a little, but it's pretty accurate. These are manually put in lines. You'll sometimes hear me call them trigger lines. I used to have a system where it would trigger an alarm when price got close to them, but now I just watch the charts all the time and can usually see when they're getting close. Also, I noticed the ES, we have a triangle situation here. Let's see if I can just draw the lines for you. This usually signifies, in my opinion, there's a lot of opinions on this. You'll see that in trading. This usually signifies that price will break out one way or the other eventually, with confirmation. What does that mean? Different things with different people. Alright, how do I delete these? Alright, on the daily ES, you can see here the rejections of the overnight. You see that often right before we rocket up. This was last week. It was, Friday. On Friday that happened. This line right here is previous month close. We hit that, rejected it, could not find sellers below, and rebounded. Well, we rebounded on news. Maybe I'll go over that later. But as you can see for today, we rejected going lower again. That doesn't mean we won't. As you can see, RSI, down here, this is RSI, we are trending a little lower. But who knows? Who knows what will happen? Maybe I'll get to predictions later when I go over key levels for today. The structure of this so far is I'll go over some overnight moves for all the indices and gold and oil. And then I'll go over the key levels to look out for the day, as well as some major news and some other things. Alright, let's take a look at the NQ. Lately it seems the NQ has not been leading the latest market push. That has to do with rates. Lowering rates benefits mostly smaller companies, such as companies in the Russell. But anyway, NASDAQ, M&Q here, overnight, quite similar to the ES. We had a large drop and then price recovered. Another decent drop starting around 2 a.m., which we recovered from. More bounces off of yesterday's close, which I also have marked here. A couple bounces off of yesterday's low, which is telling. If they weren't able to find more sellers below yesterday's low, it's unlikely we'll be going down there anytime soon. Let's take a look at the daily quick for the NQ. As you can see, I'll just compare it real quick to the ES. The ES was nearing making more monthly high. If on Friday we went just 10-20 points higher, we would have made a new monthly high. The NQ was pretty far from that on Friday. I don't know what to make of that yet. Anyway, you saw, I don't know how I didn't notice that. Oh yeah. There was a rejection of previous month close, which is this orange bar right here. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, right here. That tells me that we're not ready to go down lower yet. Might have to find more sellers up higher, or maybe we'll never go down there. A lot is riding on Thursday and Friday's news and the probability of a rate cut, which is really high right now. We'll get to that later as well. All right, let's take a look at the Russell. What's going on there? Oh, I didn't compare. So this is the ES. We're close. We are close to making new monthly highs. I don't know if it's new all-time highs in the ES. I think it is. It would have been new all-time highs. I guess I should know that. But in the NQ, we are not near making new monthly highs. All right. Russell. Also known as M2K for the micros. I mostly trade the micros because I'm poor. And it's just smart when you're relatively newer. But RTY is the same thing, as well as the Russell 2000, if you don't already know. Quite a bit different overnight for the Russell. You have the same two big drops. We are already trending higher, which means some think it's very likely we're going to get a rate cut, which, as I said earlier, benefits the smaller companies more. They're able to get better loans that the big companies can always kind of get a great rate. But the smaller companies can't always get a great rate. They're more tied to the federal interest rate. So again, we saw rejection. Seemed to ignore a little bit here. Yesterday's low, previous day low. But now we are above it. It is my opinion that I just formed this opinion from watching charts. It could be completely wrong. I am often wrong. In fact, I would like to do a segment every here and there in the day where I show a situation where I was very wrong, where I should have seen something and I didn't. Kind of a lesson to learn from. But anyway, so it is my opinion that right now, where the market is very tied to the chance of rates being cut, that the Russell tends to lead the other two indices a bit more. I don't know as much about the relationship between the Russell and the Dow Jones. They're linked quite a bit, it appears. But it does seem that you see the Russell spike. Eventually you'll see, maybe not the NASDAQ, but definitely the ES spike. So we'll probably see at some point soon the ES breaking over yesterday's low. But it depends also. At 10 a.m. we have some more news coming out. Anyway, back to the Russell. Just broke over yesterday's close as well. We'll see if it holds. Let's take a look at the Russell on the daily. Damn it, I keep doing that. All right. As you can see, much different pattern since around the 12th, which I'll get to what happened on the 12th a little bit later. It's a pretty important date in the recent market history. How I should have saw something and I didn't. I missed it. Anyway, you can see the difference here where much higher gains on news days, and we're making new monthly highs more often in the Russell than we are in the ES right now, which is right here. Definitely more than the NASDAQ, which is going down a bit. And I know my charts are very crowded. I've gone back and forth over the years. Minimalist to even more crowded than this. This is what I'm comfortable with right now. And that's all. Back to the Russell. The overnight, again, price rejection lower. This right here, this yellow line, it's a major support resistance area. There's this great indicator on TradingView called Volume Support Resistance Zones version 2. Let me know if you want to link to it if you use TradingView. Or you can probably search it doing just that, or typing just that. But it automatically, I just use the default settings. It seems configured for futures, maybe it isn't, I don't know. I use the default settings and it seems to find support and resistance areas for you where before you would just kind of see them by eye. Which I still do that as well, but anyway, you can see it there. Moving on. Is the Dow Jones, the MYM, or I think the mini is called YM, the micros MYM. overnight, again, very similar. Large drop at the beginning of the night, around 8 o'clock. Recovery. Rejection of Monday's low, Monday's close. Today is Tuesday, right? Yeah. But also, again, recovery. Right now, we're not breaking Monday's low and close. Right now, MYM is stuck previous month high, which is right here. We'll see what happens. But it does seem like the news at 8:30 was received positively for at least the first 5 minutes. It does not seem to have as much of an effect as some of the other news releases. Let's look at Dow on the daily. So again here, you can see the spike down in the rejection of prices lower, right at another resistance area right here. Not quite getting to, this is a pivot point, R1. That's a pretty easy indicator to put on. Those are usually pretty standard points. I forget what they're based on. They do a calculation with the previous month's low, high, close, something like that. But I've observed that that price seems to respond to them quite often, depending on the market. All right, let's move on to gold. Let's look at the overnight gold. So, inversely correlated, it seems, to the overnight indices. Gold isn't always, the correlation of gold to the indices is always changing. And it seems like right now it's inversely correlated, which means it goes the opposite way often. Kind of like the VIX, which I'll check that soon too. We had a quick fall followed by a sharp rise. And then zigzag. I do mark previous day levels with gold. Gold does not respond to those levels as much as the indices. It is much harder to trade gold in reference to major support and resistance areas. It's much more influenced by other things. I don't really know. News, gold inventories. I don't know enough right now. It's the whole point, isn't it? All right. Let's take a look at the daily gold chart. Something that points, something I see. So this price spike up, when was that? It was early in the overnight. Couldn't find buyers right away, which rarely happens in the overnight. And came back down to find more buyers. It does seem to be holding above previous day high, but like I said before, the gold can zigzag quite a bit. For gold, I look more at the major levels, such as previous month's close, previous month's low, which is down here, or the previous month's high. I usually make my stops a bit wider with gold, the rare occasions I trade it. Alright, let's move on to oil. Overnight. So recently with oil, we saw I'll mention that when I get over to the daily. But overnight, gold has been dropping quite a bit. The other lines I have marked here are, this was regular trading hours opening range high, and regular trading hours opening range low, and then session open. Not sure if you can read that. That's the 9:30 open. It did seem that price halted there for a little bit, good for a scalp, but eventually pushed through and is now halting above yesterday's low. Over to the daily. You can see that last week price pushed out of this kind of mini channel here. Again, it's very rough areas. And now we're coming back to see who's going to take over around yesterday's low and the rough top of this channel. This is my opinion, but I think oil is very much price controlled. At different points, different countries can release reserves or gather reserves to keep the oil price right where they want it, generally in the area they want it. Major news events will move oil, such as the possible war with Iran. That was that last month? No, that was 2 months ago. That's where you see this big spike. Smart move then would have been to wait until it stabilized and short it on the way back down, which I did not do. Alright, let's take a look at the VIX and the dollar. I am still learning a lot about the relation between the VIX and the dollar and the equities. I do know the VIX is inversely correlated to most of the indices. So up here we have the VIX overnight, which opens at 3 a.m. I don't know why the VIX isn't traded overnight. I think there's some options contracts or futures contracts that are traded all the way overnight, but I just watch the index, the S&P 500 volatility index. So we had a gap up, as you can see, and then it trended down very slightly overnight. I do want to run a study going back, I don't know how many days, but look at every day what the VIX did in the morning, in the overnight. Did it trend down? Did it trend up? Did it gap up? Did it gap down? And the resulting open in the S&P. Is the probability on the side that when the overnight VIX trends down, does the S&P gain a little bit during the day or in the morning or in the first 3 hours? I think that'd be interesting to find out. Probably mixed as usual. But anyway, that's the VIX. Over here I have the daily VIX, which we do seem to be trending very slowly down over time. Then the dollar. Right now, the price of the dollar isn't as important as the possible rate cut to the intraday price moves in the indices. But what we had in the overnight dollar, basically a zigzag. We fell quickly, recovered, fell, then recovered a little bit. I don't see any patterns. I don't see anything important. I don't know. Let me know if you do. If there's anyone watching. All right. Next, let's talk about upcoming news. Like I said, I might have said earlier, I avoid usually trading any of the major news. What I use is fxstreet.com. They have a great calendar. And I look at the impact. They have an impact. Most places that have a financial calendar will have an impact meter. And the color, it can be minimal, or it can be, for FX Street, it can be bright red or orange. I usually look at the US events that are orange or red, and I avoid trading around those times. I'm currently learning more about what each of the news events really mean, how they relate to the dollar, how they relate to US indices. And then I forget, and then I learn again, and then something else catches my attention. Anyway, coming up, never mind. Coming up, I will work on trying to show this site when I talk about the news. First I have to see if it's a good idea. I don't know how FX Street might not like it, or it might not be allowed to show another site and its information. I don't pay for the information. It's free. But still, I don't know. I'll look into it. So at 10 this morning we have coming up consumer confidence. I understand that this morning the 8:30 news was not did not move markets much. Let's take a look at it. Was there a volume increase at 8:30? Not really. More at 8:15. I'm not sure what happened at 8:15. I don't have Bloomberg Terminal. It's ridiculously expensive. But I do know at 10 o'clock, consumer confidence. That's pretty major. I'm not really sure how they gather that information. Just reading from FX Street. The report details consumer attitudes, buying intentions, vacation plans, and consumer expectations for inflation. Okay, that will have a major impact on the markets. So if you're a scalper, if you trade like me, I'd say be careful around 10. I usually put a buffer 10 to 20 minutes before and after the news release. But then later this week we have where do I have this written down? Because I don't have it written down. Thursday and Friday we have GDP. I forget which is which. Okay, GDP is on Thursday, along with PCE quarter over quarter. And on Friday we have PCE month over month and year over year. Both will impact price greatly because Jerome Powell will also be watching and deciding on whether to cut rates based on information. Maybe he already knows what he's going to do. But right now, another great tool is the CME FedWatch tool. On Friday, it jumped a lot. The probability that people think the Fed will cut rates. I'm not sure how they measure it, CME. But a lot of people watch this number as an important number. And just over, well, on Friday it jumped, I don't know, 15-20%. I think it was at 60%. Now then it went up to 83.3% on Friday. Between yesterday and today, it jumped another percent higher. I don't know what caused that. But that'll be the major news event for the rest of this week. Perhaps tomorrow or later this week, I will go into more of FOMC coming up, and well, there's not much to say about it, but watch out for it. Maybe that and other news events. All right. Earnings. I usually don't pay much attention to earnings. I do have a stock portfolio. I mostly trade ETFs in the stock portfolio. Every now and again I trade a stock or a very specific ETF. But mostly just the indices ETFs. But sometimes earnings can have a huge effect on the futures markets. The major earnings, the Nvidia, the Walmarts, the major players. Let me take a look. Anything coming up? I don't think there was much this week. For this I use TradingView. TradingView has an alright economic calendar. I know that would be a global reports calendar. But I often go to Reddit Earnings Whispers. So today, maybe after the close, there's quite a few companies putting out their earnings. None of them point out to me. I don't know what OKTA, I don't know what that is. Wednesday morning, tomorrow morning, Kohl's, Abercrombie and Fitch. So a lot of retailers, it looks like. And then after the close, big thing on Wednesday is Nvidia, HP, CrowdStrike. I think CrowdStrike is a tech company. Snowflake, that's a weird one. Some more retailers also after the close on Wednesday. That can have a big effect too on overnight moves. I'm yet to get a full understanding of which companies release when and the immediate effect on futures price, because I like to trade the overnight futures as much as possible. let's move on to observations and key levels. I'm going to go back through every futures contract I trade and go over the key levels. And the key levels, I think that will be important today. I might be repeating myself a bit because some of these levels I talked about earlier. Let's try to get this done quickly. Okay. Like I said earlier, previous day low, previous day close. Price seems to be respecting it right now. In my opinion, price action. So watching price action means a lot of different things to different people. But you can tell if price is respecting certain levels or not. Oftentimes, if it doesn't seem to care for a certain level, I don't trade. I sit out until it does. Overnight has a better track record for respecting levels than, let's say, at the very open, which I'm calling the open 9:30 a.m. Not the futures open, which is 6 p.m. But you often get much more, if you should already know this, much more volatility during the day. Things can change. But anyway, it looks like price is respecting previous day's low for MES. Now coming into today, if price wants to go higher, watch out for previous month's high at 6,468.5. I think price would stop there if we go higher. Going the other way, there's not much in here. Might stop right around the 20th, the high on the 20th, or the open on the 20th, somewhere in here. Other than that, I don't see us going down the previous month's close, which is down at 6,374. I don't see that happening today. Let's go back quick to the 5-minute. And doesn't seem to be any major support or resistance areas until we get down close to previous month's close. All right, moving on to NQ. For the NQ, in the overnight, it did seem also to respect previous day's low and previous day's close. So watch out for that. Even going higher would be yesterday's high, previous day's high, at around 23,613, 615. I'd watch out for that. Then you have Friday's high. That might even be more important, but that's very close to yesterday's high anyway. Friday's high was 23,650. Nice round number as well. If the news is very good, then you have previous month's high coming up. All right, Russell. For the Russell, the overnight, same thing. Previous day close, not so much previous day low. but look for a pullback to them. If price pulls back to previous day close at the open, or even before the open, we have 20 some minutes, 19 some minutes before the open. Price lingers there and builds strength. It's a good spot to watch. If price wants to go up, watch out for R2 pivot point at 23.53. If we keep going higher, then you got current month high and also yesterday's high, very close to each other up here at 23.75 area. Like I said, if the news is good, I think we're going to go test that. If we go down, we have a large area of support and resistance right around from 23.36 to 23.38. Below that, there's not much. All right, on to Dow. For the Dow, again, Dow respected overnight, previous day close, previous day low. What's different about the Dow is the previous month's high is also right here, which so far price has shown it doesn't know what to do right there, kind of zigzagging around previous month's high. If we go higher, there's not much in between here. I would be looking for a pullback to one of these levels for a continuation higher. Obviously, I'd put my, not obvious, I'd put my stop somewhere in this general area or even higher. Maybe I'd go for half profit here, right around yesterday's opening range high, and then I'd put the rest up close to yesterday's high. And beyond that, we have current month high. Who knows, maybe we'll get up there. Going the other way, I think what will be important is where if we crash, price going down would be the overnight low, which coincides with a major support and resistance area right around 45,174. And then below that, even more, there's a nice pivot point right here where you can see also many days were held up right there. Price couldn't hold for real long above it. So I think price would stop there on the way down. All right, on the gold. Gold for the day. I'm winging it here with gold more so. Like I said earlier, gold tends to not respect key levels as much. The overnight did tend to respect yesterday's opening range high and yesterday's close, which can't see it here. Here, I'll show you. This was yesterday's opening range high. No. Yeah, this was yesterday's opening range high, which is very close to previous day's close. Going up, if price did go up, might hitch right here at this area. It's a large area of volume, I guess, right here. And then also the overnight high. If price tends to go up, going down, Yesterday's low will probably be important. And then beyond that, there's a major resistance area. Uh-oh. Hold on, I gotta switch back, sorry. Major resistance area right here to here. Basically at 3,300, 3,371 to 34. That's also a round number, 3,400. So I could see it stopping right around there. But remember, gold travels a bit more than the indices, in my experience. So it will sweep around the lines a bit more. All right, on the oil. Again, in the overnight, oil dropped pretty hard. What was this line? Oh, that's S1. That's a pivot point. So it stopped for a very little bit at the pivot point. So if we do go up, expect it to hitch right there. Didn't really seem to stop as much on a dime at yesterday's opening range low in the session open. I'd say if we did go up, look for it to stop around yesterday's close. On the way down, we have it looks to be halting around the lows, yesterday's low, previous day low. What is this blue line? Oh, I drew them. And then we have further down a resistance area around 63.30, 63.27. Remember, that was the top of this kind of half-assed channel here, where I drew those lines. Predictions for today with anything, I don't know. Watch the news. That'll make the difference. I'm thinking we're going to go higher in the indices. Gold and oil, I have no idea. But the indices, I think will shoot a little bit higher today. All right, that's about it. I'm coming up to the open here. In the future, I might, if I start to get an audience, and I hope so, I'd like to more direct people over to the community. Trading is a lonely game. It's hard to talk to your family about trading. They don't, most people don't share the same interests. So it'd be nice to have a little community of people to talk about this type of thing, so I can grow more, learn more, stop paper trading. But the final thing I want to do today is I want to show an example of something I should have known. Something going back to the 12th here. So bear with me while I backtrack to another news release. Look for in this news release, 12th, look for the same signs today. You might get the same signs today. But if you were trading around the 12th, you'll remember. And then you had a huge increase on the 12th. News came out at 8:30 a.m. Inflation wasn't as bad people expected it to be. There was a lot of precursors that I missed, that I should have seen. First was there was news articles coming out the previous couple days before that were admitting that many people were wrong about who was eating the tariffs. It was coming out that companies were eating the tariffs more than consumers. It was kind of a sign that they knew which way the wind was blowing. And then also, something I definitely should have noticed, starting at 7:50 that morning, as you can see here, price started to, not only price action, I can't show you the price action, but I remember the price action was heavy. And the volume, you can see here, MACD started picking up. And also, very importantly, RSI started to pick up before the news event. And then, of course, when the news came out, rocketed. I think, I don't know, you can speculate a lot on who this was, who was buying, who knew. Insiders? I don't know. There's always got to be someone who knows. And I guess that was them loading up for the jump. Anyway, that's something I saw, something I should have known. Oh, also I'll show you on the VIX on that day. Yep, right here. No. Yep, right here on the VIX at 7:50. I don't know what it was about that time. It just started to decrease heavily. Same thing with the RSI in the VIX. Started to decrease heavily. I mean, you could even see it going back here a little bit more. But another sign I should have seen, I should have known. That would have been an amazing trade. Anyway, that's it for today. Happy trading. Got about 6 minutes till the market open. Again, link to the Discord is in the description. Let me know if it doesn't work. Let me know anything. If anyone's watching. Eventually somebody will. Alright, happy trading. See you.